The world of crypto is growing every day.
Despite the risks and volatility of crypto trading, more and more people are dipping their toes into the market. Sports stars like Aaron Rodgers and Odell Beckham Jr. announced last November they will be taking part of their NFL salaries in Bitcoin. More recently, the newly elected mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, announced his first paycheck for the job was automatically converted into cryptocurrency. For more on this, Lehane joins us now. He's a former executive at Airbnb and recently announced he is moving to the crypto business, working as the chief strategy officer for a new crypto venture, Capital Fund. Why did you decide to make this move, going from Airbnb, a public trading company, to the crypto market?
Well, first of all, thanks, Nikki and Tanya, for having me. Well, really, a lot of the reasons that attracted me to Airbnb in the first place, which is a fabulous company, have attracted me to crypto and even more broadly, Web3. Now, I went to Airbnb because the business model of Airbnb was effectively democratizing an entire sector, the travel sector. The vast majority of the economics that go through Airbnb ultimately go to the host of 4+ million people who make their homes available on the platform. And the company, Airbnb, really isn't able to succeed and execute on its business model unless those hosts have a real say in the direction of the company. What crypto and even more broadly Web3 represents in a really simplistic form is a better version of the internet. And by a better version of the internet, doing what Airbnb has done within the travel sector, but really across the entire internet. And in particular, I think there are two aspects that have really attracted me and drawn me into the space. The first is that participants can actually be owners in the economy in a different way than they've been thus far. And secondly, they get to have a real voice in the economy and in their participation as members of the economy. And so it gives them, I think, a real stake and a fair shake. And ultimately, that is about building a better internet. We are going to go through a pretty significant evolution in the architecture of the internet. It's always changing. And I think there's a really significant opportunity to try to build a better version of it now that will be built on some of the existing structures that exist. That's how history works. That's how evolution takes place. But I do really feel like we're in that moment.
Yeah, but Chris, how long until, world governments start to regulate this? This is a currency, so governments are going to want to crack down, right? Many longtime stock traders and portfolio managers do say that crypto is not the way to grow your wealth long term. It's still a little bit of a gamble, even though it's growing in popularity. Do you, recognize the danger of governments changing the whole playing field here?
First of all, I think it's really important that both the Web3 and crypto work with governments and governments work with this sector. This should be an alliance. A lot of the same arguments, have been made at other points in history, even in the history of the internet, about what type of wealth creation would take place, what type of economic impact would take place. And history is pretty clear, right? This is a really big opportunity. I mean, right now it's a $2 trillion sort of market cap if you look at it from that perspective. But imagine what the economy of the entire internet could look like as you go forward and for people to be able to participate, as we've talked about. On the specific government question, one of my favorite stories in all of this is, what happened at really the turn of the 19th and the 20th century when the combustion engine was first really developed. You had countries in Europe that really looked to regulate it, and in fact, regulate it so that you would favor horses over cars. In the US, we really embraced the combustion engine, embraced the automobile industry, and you can really draw a through line about how our government embraced that to ultimately making the US, the economic engine of the world, the center of industrialization. That then led to the need for a New Deal, right? And the New Deal really recalibrated the relationship between the public sector and the private sector so that capitalism would work as well as possible for as many people as possible. I think we're in a similar moment today. We don't need old rules for a new thing. We definitely need new rules for this new thing. And those new rules really should be designed to optimize for some really significant public policy benefits. I don't think there's any question, if you look at how the internet, the digital economy, platforms are working today, that they've over-indexed on being centralized. People want to be able to participate in different ways now. And so as we think about these rules, can these rules advance more participation, more economic participation so that those people who are within these economies are able to really get and derive the economic benefits? Do they get a bigger say in some of the decisions that are being made? Does it become more democratized? And I think a really simple acid test or litmus test for all of this that governments should keep in mind, that the private sector should keep in mind, that all of us really need to keep in mind is this really simple question. Is the technology benefiting for humans, or is the technology disrupting at the expense of humans? And I think we have a real opportunity here to make sure, as there is an evolution in the internet, that the technology is disrupting to benefit humans.
Well, to your point that, governments will have to sign on and work with sort of this currency. We do have, government leaders like right here in New York City, the new mayor wants to be paid in Bitcoin. The more that sort of thing happens, do you think that will help sort of legitimize these currencies and make them go mainstream?
It's a great question. And, I originally come out of politics and then moved into tech, and in tech, we always talk about signals, data points that maybe suggest the next coming thing. In politics, the equivalent of signals are what mayors are doing, what mayors are reacting to, how mayors are leading. And I say that because mayors are on the front line. They're dealing with real people every day. And obviously you see Mayor Adams in New York. You also see the mayor of Miami, Mayor Flores. You see mayors in Reno. You see mayors in Tennessee, really across the board, who are really seeking to embrace crypto and the broader opportunities and promises of Web3, because I think they're really picking up on what is going on the ground in their communities. This sense that there is a real need and desire for the ability of people to really be able to participate more in the economic opportunities that are potentially available within the digital world. And also, as someone who comes out of politics, what is really fascinating about this, and those mayors I just listed, they're both Democrats and Republicans. This issue cuts across partisan lines in a moment in this country when there's almost no issues that cut across partisan lines. Today you could say that about 20% of the electorate is somehow engaged in crypto. That number is growing, particularly if you think that by 2025, we'll go from about 200 million people in crypto to maybe 1 billion. But as you look at that 20%, it cuts across Democrat, Republican, gender, men, women, racial lines, all the traditional demographic lines, crypto really transcends. And I think that's a particularly powerful sign that people are looking at what this.
Chris, I hate to cut you off, but the president is speaking, so we got to jump to the president. But Chris Lehane,
understood.
thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.